JT Smash! I challenge you to a video challenge. You tell me your three biggest video game pickups ever. What do I mean by that? That means what are the rarest games that you have found for the cheapest. You tell me, and I'll share mine. Thanks for watching, guys. Alright, JT Smash, you need to get to work, buddy. So, for me, guys, I'm not trying to toot my own horn or brag. I've just been lucky. I've been lucky in the stuff that I found for cheap. And honestly, guys, you just gotta go and hunt. You gotta go and look. You have to go and just try new things. Pawn shops, thrift stores, flea markets, garage sales, Facebook, you name it, okay? And you'll find this stuff. I've made a lot of connections here in the state of Missouri, and I still plan on making many, many more. So number 3 for me. So I'll just tell a little bit of a story here. I'll give you guys the condensed version. It's actually on my Earthbound review. So I messaged this lady who said that she had some games, and she's like, oh, I have some Super Nintendo games. I said, oh, well, okay. And, you know, she messaged me, and then like months and months went by, and, you know, I just kind of forgot about it. And then just out of the blue, she's like, hey, I found my games. And I was like, okay, cool, what are they? So she started, you know, running through all these games. They're pretty good titles, very common, Donkey Kong 2, 3, I don't know, Super Mario World. I had the majority of them. And then just like tucked in the middle there, Earthbound. Yeah, and she listed off about like, I don't know, 150 games or something like that. And we came to a pretty fair price, and it came down to like almost like $1.50 a game. And I said, all right, because this basically paid for the lot at the time. And, you know, the board is real, and I believed her story. She wasn't a collector or anything. She just kept it in her closet from childhood. And this came out to be like $2.50. And just, I'm still amazed by this find. Found it in a small Midwest town in Missouri. It just blows my mind, stuff like that. So I know there's still like little Samsons out there. There's still, you know, Surprise at Dinosaur Peak, Flintstones, you know, games like that. They're still out there. They're getting harder and harder to find, but they're still there. Okay, so that's my number 3. Number 2. This was like right at the time I started game chasing really hot and heavy. This was probably about 5 years ago, and I took my boys out. This is before I was on YouTube. I wish I could have had this all on footage. Game chasers would have been jealous for sure. Okay, so we went to Columbia, Missouri. We went to various thrift stores and pawn shops and flea markets and all that. Actually hit a couple garage sales that day too. So my dad, he's over there at the same time too, and it's about a 40-minute drive to Columbia where we're located. And he's like, hey, there's games at this thrift store that we hadn't been at yet. And I'm going to show pictures of my finds, and you guys are going to be blown away. And I will actually tell you guys the price that I paid for these games, okay? So my dad calls me up. I was like, okay. Usually, he would call me back then and say, hey, I found, I don't know, Joe Montana Sports Talk Football, which, he didn't know the difference. And he started to learn, it's like, I don't really like sports games. But at the time, he'd call me up for an ET, Atari ET, okay? Which is, very, very nice of my dad. Thank you, Dad, for doing that. He still does that occasionally. But I was like, okay, Dad, what's there? Like, oh boys, more sports games. He started listing off Final Fantasy 3, Final Fantasy 2, Super Mario RPG, Super Mario World, Super Mario World 2. What else? Just a ton of Game Boy games, a ton of 64 games, Pokemon Stadium 1, 2, Final Fantasy Legend 2, 3, games like that. Pokemon out the wazoo, all the DS games you can think of, and just blown away, and I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but there was a lot there, a lot of Super Nintendo, and actually that's where I started getting the bulk of my collection back, because previous to that time, I actually sold off a lot of my collection. We do it, and just a lot of cool stuff. A lot of uncommon stuff that you wouldn't normally see. A lot of Zelda games, a lot of GameCube Zelda games. I believe there was 2 gold cart Zelda games in there and a gray cart. No boxes for the cartridges except for the DS games. There's some PS2 stuff in there too. There's just too much to name off. I'll show pictures of it all up here. Okay, so you guys can check those out. And seriously, like, probably over 150 games. So this was a newer thrift store at the time, and I went up to the counter and I saw all the games, and I was just kind of sweating. I was just like perspirating and just like, man, do they know what they have? Do they know? This was really right before a huge shift in what I've seen in thrift stores since. Thrift stores know what they have. If you go to Goodwill, they generally know what they have. You might catch them slipping, game chasers. But really, I didn't know what to do. I really didn't know what to do. And Hunter J of the Game Chasers, back in my head, he's like, you tell them what their price is. You ask them what their price is. Don't tell them. So I was like, okay, look, I want all these games, with the exception of a few. I let Stevie actually get a few, and Bubby get a few. So they were with me and a few other friends, and Ronnie was there too. So I was like, look, how much do you want? And it's about 150 games. And she's like, I don't know. She was kind of nervous about the whole thing, because I think they just got them in. My dad was literally there holding the box, making sure no one was going to buy them. And actually, it was funny. Bubby was actually trying to look in the box. My dad's like, nope, these are Tony's. Nope. It was quite hilarious, actually. So, I was like, okay, look. What do you think? She's like, $100. And I looked at it. There were no systems in there. I think there was actually a Game Boy, maybe a Game Boy Advance. But I looked at her and I was like, and guys, I'm a cheapskate. I really am when it comes to game hunting, game chasing. I said, you do 85. She looked at me and she smiled. We actually built a nice rapport. And she was a really sweet girl, really nice girl. And she said, for you, I'll do 85. And I was like, okay. So walked out the door with all those games, and man, I added a big chunk to my collection. And man, so glad to have it. I think I got another Zelda Ocarina of Time in that lot, but man, a lot of good games there. A lot of good games. Okay, so that's my number 2. Number 3, this one's a doozy. Oh my lord, guys. I wish I still owned it, but I'll tell you guys why I don't own it anymore. Okay, so this was probably about 4 years ago or so. And the fall time, and I went on Swap Shop and I noticed on a garage sale page in Columbia, Missouri, some lady was just selling a bunch of video games. And they were like Xbox games and, you know, maybe some PS2 sports games. And then there were a lot of pictures, and I just started scrolling through them on Facebook, and I started seeing Nintendo games. A lot of Nintendo games. And I'm going to show a picture of what I found, too. So I was like, oh, okay. And some of them I didn't have. Some of them were kind of uncommon. So I was like, okay. And I kept scrolling. And a picture of this came up. My heart jumped out of my chest at that point. It was an M82 demo unit. And it looked like it was in pretty good shape. And I actually messaged her and I said, hey, you know, what is this thing? I knew what it was. I was like, what is this thing? And she's like, oh, it's one of those old demo units that used to be in Walmart. My ex-husband, he worked at Walmart and he took it home. They were actually going to throw it away. And he took it home and just kept it. And he used it as his Nintendo. So I was like, look, I'm interested. I'm interested in the M82 and all of your Nintendo games. Every single one of them. It was probably about 50 Nintendo games, if I'm not mistaken. Some common, some uncommon, like I said. So I'm freaking out because I'll be honest, I didn't want her to, I'm not trying to be a scumbag, but I did not want her to look up the price of those things. And if you don't know, they're very, very uncommon. I would even call them rare, bubby. So this lady's like, oh, I'll even meet you in your hometown. I'll come and drive it by. And, we came to the agreement of $250. And I actually worked her down from about $400 or so. And, she drove it to me. I paid the woman. And just freaking out. Take it home. Works perfect. It's a little dinged up. The cable was a little gnawed looking. And actually got it repaired. So, yeah, it was so awesome. That's my number one. Now, why don't I own it today? So, a couple of years ago, I was actually going through the process of selling some of my games off. I actually sold a big chunk of my Game Boy games, probably about 200 of them or so. Some, pretty uncommon, some common, just sell them in big bulks. And I was like, man, we want to buy a house. So, I took this thing, I started looking online, eBay, and how much it was going for. I was like, man, $2,000 sounds pretty good right about now. So I put it online and I put a reserve on it, and pretty serious about selling it. And I actually sold it to a pretty hardcore collector, and he really into all these demo units, really into all this rare Nintendo stuff that are like one-of-a-kind items. And I sold it to him. It's in the home of a real true collector, real true Nintendo fan. And seriously, I'm happy that he has it. Do I wish I still had it? Yeah, but I'm in my home now, and to me, that's, more worth it. So guys, those are my 3 biggest pickups for like the least amount of money that I've ever paid. And I have tons and tons and tons of stories like that. And I've shared about the Game Chasers. They inspired me to start doing this on a bigger scale. And yeah, guys, you can do this too. I know that quote-unquote retro gaming is dying, and it's getting harder and harder to find. There's scalpers, I get it, but they're still there. They're still out there. You just gotta look. You gotta go out and hunt. And that's what's so fun about it. Even to this day, when I go to my local thrift store, when I go out hunting, yard sailing, the sky's the limit. And when I find a deal, I'm just like, man, yes. So, JT Smash, share your 3 biggest pickups for the least amount of money that you paid for them. And hey guys, I'm pointing my master sword at you. Thanks for watching. If you want to be eligible for some sweet Mario swag, all you have to do is subscribe to me. That's it. Please subscribe. And you guys, hey, share with me. What are some of your biggest finds for like dirt cheap? What are some of your finds that, man, I paid like next to nothing for, and this game is like really rare? And if you guys want to judge me a little bit, go for it. I'm sorry. It's just luck. It's just luck. That's all it is. So guys, thank you for watching. And I hope you have a great day. Again, thanks for watching.